Hi, I'm Teresa Erbrick.
I'm Corey Garrett.
And I'm Amy King, and we'd like to present to you our presentation on response to intervention. We feel that with the craziness of the 2021 school year, it's time to get back to our roots and get back to doing what we need to do to help our struggling students. And we realize that now we have a special struggle, which is the loss of instruction from the past school year. And so we have a lot of making up to do. So that's why we thought that it would be a good time to go back and revisit response to intervention, talk about its purpose, the changes that have happened, and how to best address the needs of all of our students.
So what we would like to do, Ms. Hamilton, we'd like you to watch our presentation and see if you think this would be a good idea. We'd like to start with Jerry Brooks.
It's time
We all
for
love
school,
him.
but where's the teacher? Here I am. Let's see who else is here. Let me get my magic mirror and see who's here. Boys and girls, it looks like everybody's here today. We're all here. We're all here. We're all here.
We're all a little scarred from remote learning. So we all know,
It's time for school, but where's the teacher?
but we all
Here I
know
am.
we're
Let's see
here. We love technology as well. But we'd have this as a teacher, we all want our agendas in front of us. So everybody would have an agenda that would lay out the day and what we would do. But we'd also, teachers want to have a little fun, as we've noted with our love of Jerry Brooks and his way to start and kick off the day. We'd also have a little bingo, staff meeting bingo, and I'd get the PTA to help us with some cool little prizes and surprises for teachers as they went along and throughout the session.
And then we thought we'd start off with an icebreaker, and it's called I Know What You Did Last Summer. And just to kind of start off the meeting with a positive note, along with the Jerry Brooks video, and have statements. And as a statement is read, if the statement applied to something that the teacher did this summer, then they would get a piece of bubble gum from the center of the table and put it in their mouth. So hopefully we would have a lot of full mouths trying to talk and laugh and giggle. And it would just be a good time for us to kind of break the ice and get back into the groove of being in school, and also be some good conversation starters and some collaboration, so people would realize some of the things that they had in common.
What is response to intervention? Response to intervention is a multi-tiered approach designed to improve learning outcomes for all students with special attention for our struggling students.
The history and purpose of RTI. If we think back, it started way back in the 1970s and the 1980s, but it also reemerged in 2004 with IDEA.
And the purpose of RTI is to more accurately identify students that are in need of special services. And so what we do through RTI is we remediate, we intervene with students, and with the hopes that that little extra time and extra one-on-one or small group instruction would meet the need, instead of in the past where the students that were struggling a lot of times were just immediately referred for special services.
Right. And of course, we can refer students for ex-ed testing, but RTI, the purpose of it is also just to serve those students that are not going to qualify or don't need to be referred. Some students just need a little help to get caught up with their peers. They can be behind for a variety of reasons. And so doing RTI gives us an opportunity to address the needs of those students and then see what needs to happen next. Perhaps they need to be referred. Perhaps they don't. Maybe they just need a little bit of extra help to get caught up with their peers. And so RTI gives us the opportunity to make those decisions and then to help those students.
So when we look at the data, if we look at the student breakdown in 2004, then we had tier 1 at 80%, at tier 2, 10 to 15%, and tier 3 was between 3 and 5%.
Now the student breakdown is different. In 2021, the newest numbers that have come out say that only about 60% of our students are tier 1 students. And that just means that those are students for whom tier 1 instruction is adequate. That's enough. They don't need tier 2 or tier 3 instruction. If you take a look at the tier 2 numbers, now instead of 10 to 15%, we have closer to 30% of our students. That's almost a third of our students that are in need of tier 2 instruction. That's a huge change from 2004 until now. And then tier 3 as well, we've seen an increase. Instead of 3 to 5% of students requiring tier 3 instruction, now we're at 10% of our students that require tier 3 instruction. So that causes us to have to change the way that we do RTI because there are so many more students in need of tier 2 and tier 3 instruction.
And so, Ms. Hamilton, when we were talking about this and we noticed the big difference now to what it was before, we realized that what we were previously doing, we're going to have to adjust this year because we're going to have more students that are going to need the tier 2 instruction. And we know that tier 2 is supposed to be small group, but when you take 30% of your class into tier 2, that's not just one small group. We're going to have multiple tools in our tool bag, in our toolbox to be able to address the needs of this many students.
So how has remote learning affected our students' performance?
So what we noticed here was there was a news story on ABC News that just validated what we found in the data. And it just told us just this past year with the pandemic and how education had to be approached differently, that the high number of students in remote learning, it really had a negative effect on their academic performance. So that just validates what the numbers and what the data tells us.
Mm-hmm. And I know personally, when I had students come from remote into back to traditional, the gaps in instruction or the gaps in ability were significant, and just getting them caught up took a lot of time, or just being that third party between the remote teacher and the parents. The difficulties there alone, I'm worried as to what's going to happen this next school year with our students.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the technology changes. Then, back in 2004, only 3% of our classrooms were able to implement a 1-to-1 device ratio. Now, nationwide, 50% of our classrooms, and really I feel like that number probably is higher than 50%, but at least half of our classrooms have a 1-to-1 device ratio. Now, why is that important? I think that it's important because as we change the way that we address student needs, and there's such a greater number of students that need individualized help. Now we have the ability to use technology in our classrooms in a way that we've never been able to before, because we are able to address those individual needs with the help of technology.
And so because of all of this information, we now know that there are going to have to be some changes in our instruction and what we do in our classrooms.
So where we would traditionally have that normal just whole group, maybe a small group or that setting, and then work with that simple small group, we're going to have to do some other things. One of the components of the new math program is that we can, if Susie didn't do well on one part of the math, it will automatically pull and put something into her learning path into her computer portion, but it will also pull and let me pull hard copies to be able to reteach and have a hard document to where I've done tier 2 instruction with her, which is a component that is really going to impact our documentation of tier 2 instruction.
And that will make our lives as teachers, that'll help us out so much, because we do have in our school, we do have a 1-to-1. All of our students have devices. And so when we were talking about, we're going to have multiple small groups. Well, we're going to have, if we're meeting with a small group, then we know our other students are going to have to be engaged in something that is meaningful. And also having the devices is going to make it more manageable for the teachers.
Yes, because we know that that tier 2 group is really going to be more than one group. And so, of course, we'll continue to do whole group instruction the way we always have, with the knowledge that we're really only fully addressing the needs of about 60% of our students when we do that. So we know that we've really got to beef up the way that we do small group and individualized instruction. And listening to the two of you talk, I completely agree. It's like small group and individualized instruction will be intertwined. And because we have new tools that we didn't have 20 years ago, we will be able to multitask in a way that we've never been able to before. If we can use the computer assisted individualized instruction simultaneously with us pulling small groups, I think that that will lead to a lot more efficiency and a lot less wasted time, because while we're working with a small group, and we know that we will be pulling more than one small group, because 30% of our students requiring tier 2 instruction, that's not a small group, that's a very large group. So we're looking at pulling more than one small group. And while the students are not in small group with us, they can be working on individualized skills by using the computer assisted, technology assisted activities.
Yes.
So I think that we're headed in the right direction.
Yes. And this leads me to progress monitoring. And this year we know it was a totally different year to look at it. But I personally, myself, this is an area of growth, because I feel like we're really going to need to utilize this form more than ever to document that we are hitting and monitoring and having artifacts that are supporting our teach and reteach in the small group that we're doing with our kids.
And we know from this class, a class that we've had this summer in our JSU program, that assessments are so important. And it is important to assess along the way. And that's what this progress monitoring is for. If we make sure that all the teachers are progress monitoring in their small group instruction, then we've got the data, we've got the evidence to back up if we think that a child has been successful on tier 2 and they can come off of tier 2, or if they're making some progress and we need to do another 4 or 8 weeks on tier 2, or if they've been on tier 2 for several cycles and they're just not making any progress and not achieving the goals that we set for them, then maybe it is time for us to refer them for special testing.
It really is so important. And I know that I've been guilty before of trying to make decisions about a student and having to go back and try to look at what I've done with them to figure out where they are. And so I think it's just a good reminder for me personally that it's so good to have a systematic approach from the beginning of progress monitoring, where you know when the progress monitoring is happening, it's systematic, it's during regular intervals all the way through. So it keeps us from getting to a point where we're making decisions and we're not sure. We automatically have that data in front of us that we've collected all along the way, and we're able to make those decisions and have that data handy.
And we also know how helpful that is for the teacher that's coming behind you.
Yes.
The students that maybe they were on tier 2 and they struggled, but the tier 2 interventions helped. Then the teacher that has them the following year can look back and they know, what was successful and what worked or didn't work, and how the student did.
We want to say thank you for listening to our presentation. We would really love to be able to turn this around in a PD session for the opening school year, because we really do feel like it will be a concern due to the remote learning and the crazy school year due to COVID. We feel like that the RTI process and the tier 2 paperwork really needs to have a hard look at it, and we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page in our documentation process. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.